Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with some newish music. It's definitely a new music video, although the song came out sometime last year. This is the debut song of the band Cuspid, and I hope that you're still in the mood for Shoegaze, which we checked out last week. So let's dive into this and see what Cuspid is bringing to the table with the song Nematode. I like how we have a warmer, more legato playing on the lower end while we have a more, you can feel each individual note being played on the higher end instrumentation. Oh, dude, this is interesting. It has a little bit of that haunting vibe that Deftones does really well, but there's also something really warm and inviting about the atmosphere of this. To explode out, have more projection and support for the vocals here. There's also less reverb here. Yeah, this one feels more closed in. The vocals are lighter and more ethereal. It really makes the explosion of the chorus hit. It punches. It just cuts through all of this. We have the waviness on the outside. And we kind of get rid of that for this. This is more solid. This is more physical. It's a really nice contrast. It's interesting because we've gone back to the verse atmosphere, but it's no longer haunting, it's comforting. This is a very cool midpoint between the verse and the chorus atmospheres. And then it just ends on this low tone. Yeah, very cool stuff. I really want to focus on that atmosphere first and sort of this emotional story I'm getting here, because we do have this very cool division between the two sides, with the verse just being very, I don't know, it feels surrounded, it feels compressed, it feels like there's a lot of space that can't be used or that won't be used, especially coming into that second verse out of the chorus. And you can feel that the song takes up all of this space. And then we come down to the verse and you realize just how small this is. There's so much room outside of it. And it almost feels as if you're in this area, but we also lose a lot of the high end sound. We lose the explosive guitars. We kind of return to something a bit more warmer and muted. It feels compressed in a lot of ways. But we also have the wavy reverberations off on the sides too. I think using water for the music video matches because the verse absolutely feels watery to me. Sounds are muffled. They're not as loud as they would be. The waviness absolutely gives water vibes sitting on the outside of this. The vocals being a bit more light and airy. They no longer have that physicality to them. They've kind of lightened up quite a bit. It's really interesting then to take this, which feels compressed in, it feels small, it feels like a section of a whole, to transition that into the chorus, which is comparatively bombastic. Huge sounds taking up the entire sound sphere. The guitars move from being, yeah, fuzzy to fuzzy and large. They expand in size, they expand in width, they expand in physicality and weight. But what's interesting is that as everything gets bigger, you would assume that it would make the song feel heavier. There's so much more going on, but it doesn't. It brings with it a harmonic shift too, where we actually bring a lot of high-end notes to this, where the melody moves from something that I mentioned was kind of eerie or haunting was the word I used for the verse, into something more uplifting. There's positivity in it. It's this duality between the eerie and almost the joyful that this song bounces between, almost as if it's moments of withdrawing within the self out of whatever loneliness, sadness, whatever reason that you would pull into yourself, and then finding whatever it is that makes you happy, and then just having that passion pour out of you. Maybe I'm just injecting a lot of myself in that. I am a rather shy person. I don't know if that comes across in these videos. I talk throughout most of them, so I don't know if that really feels very shy. But the thing is if you get me talking about something I'm passionate, you bring up technology or, privacy or music, I'm going to be all in. I'm just going to be a gabbermouth. What was it the kids say? They're bringing back yapping. Did you know that? I just start yapping about stuff. To me, that's like a super old term. That's something my grandparents said, but the kids are saying it these days. Anyways, I'm rambling. And that's what this feels like, to be withdrawn and it kind of being darker, lonelier. It's just you in this little ball. But then you find that thing and you're just like, and it just cuts through everything. It's this explosion. It's an eruption of positivity, of joy, of comfort, of just this shining light that forces this little ball open, and all of this energy just starts pouring out. And that's what the chorus feels like to me. I really like that. And I think it makes the second verse kind of hit hard. It's a return back to that original state. Something has reverted here. We've de-evolved. I think that's what makes the bridge so interesting to me, is that the first half of the bridge, we return back to that quieter, less spacious, more ethereal verse, at least sonically, but harmonically, it doesn't carry that haunting vibe anymore. It doesn't really feel lonely either. It actually took some of that more vibrant, joyful chord progression and note choices from the chorus and injected it into this quieter section. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret that yet. But I think if well, I do. This is my job. So I'm put in the spotlight right here. Let's go with it. My interpretation of this right now, and it could change, is that for whatever reason, this person has found joy within. And so the retreating inward is no longer the opposite of the joyful, more outward expression, but it's a way of bringing that inward too, where they can find balance in their life. They can find those moments where they just pour this joy out to other people and be very extroverted in that way. But they can also find comfort when they're by themselves. It's no longer something that feels lonely or haunting. It's just another great part of being. And sort of finding the middle ground there and walking it. And that's what it feels like to me. And I really like how that then transitions into this more overwhelming feeling. We return back to that chorus sounds, but it's not the chorus. And we've kind of found beauty and joy in both halves of this track in different ways and in different perspectives. And I'm a real big fan of that. For a song to start out in a bit more of a negative mood and find ways to bring joy to that, to get a new perspective on it, to recontextualize what felt lonely before and find positivity within that. And at least that's what I get out of this track. Now, we've kind of already talked about generally what the instruments are doing. The drums are kind of light. They give us mostly our beat. The instruments are very textural. There really isn't a riff in here I can think of. The guitars and bass are either atmosphere, in which they're giving us the fuzzy texture, or they're harmonic, and they're giving us the information through the chord progression, the emotional element through that. The only other instrument that I haven't really touched too much on is the vocals. I think they work really well for this. They capture the right mood for both of these sections while also fitting really well within this general sound. There's some compression put on it, some extra reverb, all that done in post, but I also think just whatever they're doing to naturally create the sounds that they're going for, the light etherealness and the more physical projected side without going overboard. There certainly isn't any, rock shouting in here. There's no like R&B runs going on. Everything in here still feels rather muted in their delivery. And I think that really matches the overall energy of this track, which even in the chorus can feel a bit mid-energy, maybe at best. It all feels rather low energy. As far as tempo, as far as emotional intensity, as far as the number of notes per second, there's definitely a sonic explosion in that chorus, and that does bring up its energy a little bit. But when I think about the music itself, it's low tempo, low amount of notes, just kind of on a chiller side. It's just the production that makes it feel big and energetic. And so having vocals that kind of matches that lower energy delivery works really well. And that's something that Shoegaze does phenomenally in general. It's something that this band's doing really well, adding to the Shoegaze genre. Another interesting thing though, I'll take some, this has nothing to do with Cuspid, but I'll take some direction on this. Last week, we checked out a lot of Shoegaze. And I kind of found out that there's two sides to Shoegaze. There's like Shoegaze, which I think is closer to this verse. And then there's Dream Pop, which is sort of a less noisy type of Shoegaze, a more lighter side, which I think is this verse. Would this be a song that embodies both sides, Shoegaze and Dream Pop? Let me know in the comments. I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of this stuff. Let me hit some lyrics, and then we're going to wrap this video up. All right, lyrically, this is about being intoxicated by someone else's presence. The very first stanza says, "Soft, you breathe through my lungs and it goes away. Try to hold your gaze, you look so clear when we're face to face." This idea of breathing and lungs comes up later on in the track, just hang on to that. But it's this idea of just being so intertwined, right? That all of our necessary systems to live are working in tandem with each other. Now, I want to jump straight to the chorus here rather than, usually I would go to the second verse and then we'll hit the chorus, because the chorus tends to be like, you know, the key point, right? It's the thesis of the song. But I really think it's important to hit this first. It says, "Let me hide in your ribs. Let me feel you one more time. Let you into my mind where you hold me one more time." This idea of being within someone's grasp. So on the one hand, you have a pretty typical idea of being held, but we put that into a mental form of being held. The other type of having someone surround you, she says, "Let me hide in your ribs. Let me feel you one more time." To be so encompassed by someone that you are actually within them. But not only that, there's this element of safety, of protection there. The rib cage is there to protect all of our vital organs. She wants to sit within inside of that. Being held by this person brings the vocalist comfort. I really like all of that. On the surface, makes a lot of sense, but you dig a little deeper, you can find some cool stuff going on in there too. Now the second verse says, "You say that I'm all that you need. Don't know what you see when you look at me." So we have someone who has a little bit of self-esteem issue. They definitely think that this other person is maybe out of their league. And they're like, "You're everything to me." We've kind of seen that in the first verse and second, and the chorus, sorry. But here in the second verse, the vocalist says, "I don't know what you see in me, but you say that I'm all that you need." So we're on that same wavelength. We're totally infatuated with the other person. It says, "Your skin is stuck in my teeth. All I know is you pull me under." And there we go. The idea of being pulled under, beneath water, presumably. This idea of being suffocated in a positive manner. But I think this is interesting too, because after the chorus, we go into the bridge, right? And I mentioned that the bridge kind of married the more watery, underwater, compressed, darker, moodier side of things, but with a more positive harmonic palette. There is joy within this rather than something haunting. The vocals here say, "Pull me in one more time, suffocate me one more time." There's definitely an element here of finding positivity in the suffocation, to be so completely overwhelmed by someone else and to find that to be a positive experience. And this just comes full circle. And it makes me wonder about the opening verse. mentioning that you breathe through my lungs. The second verse says that you pull me under. Both of these verses musically are very haunting. And it makes me wonder if, because there's so much non-physicality to this, right? Hold me within your mind. Says that your skin is stuck in my teeth, a past tense. Says, let me feel you one more time. I wonder if, for whatever reason, this person isn't around anymore. The relationship could be over. Maybe they've passed away or had to move town. Who knows? But I think that's what makes it a little bittersweet of getting, so suffocated by this other person, but you can't actually have that physicality of the relationship anymore, but you're still very overwhelmed by them. And maybe that's what makes the verse haunting, makes it a bit more melancholic. I mentioned it was a feeling of retreat, and then the chorus being this bursting energy of positivity. I don't know. I might be reading into it too much. I'm really trying to figure out how that haunting element works when so much of the lyrics seem to be positive. It's this complete intoxication of someone's presence and the positive, feelings of that. All the, dopamine receptors going off and the synapses firing that just make being with this person a total joy. It could also just be having to leave them. It's the end of the day. You can't hang out anymore. Maybe the date's over, whether this is a platonic or a romantic relationship here. The moments between seeing them are the ones where you feel sadder and more withdrawn. That's a possible reading of it as well. I don't know. These are just my thoughts on Cuspid's Nematode. Let me know what you thought of this. Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. I accidentally hit the play button. Put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, or ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.